what was that turning point that made you a theatre guru?
Garima, I think everyone in their life experiences a turning point, and often that turning point is a result of a problem or a challenge. There was a turning point where I really had to ask myself if a job is what I wanted to do or if it's something of my own. Now, doing something of my own was a childhood dream, but up until that point, it wasn't a very real possibility.
Welcome, Rayana. You are doing such an incredible work. You have moved not just cities, but countries and even your career. I would want to know what was that turning point that made you a theatre guru, I must say, because I think you have already trained in 150 countries with the number of people I can't even count right now. Right? So
Thank you so much for having me in the first place, Garima. I think everyone in their life experiences a turning point, and often that turning point is a result of a problem or a challenge. ऐसे ही खुशी खुशी कोई टर्निंग पॉइंट नहीं ले लेता या ले भी लेते होंगे, बट इन माई पर्टिकुलर करियर देयर वाज अ टर्निंग पॉइंट वेयर आई रियली हैड टू आस्क माई सेल्फ इफ अ जॉब इज व्हाट आई वांटेड टू डू or if it's something of my own. Now, doing something of my own was a childhood dream, but up until that point, it wasn't a very real possibility. It's only when I was at a crossroads that I realized that I do have certain skills and an education to back it up. So I have a degree in theatre, and I had a lot of experience up until that point as well. And I thought I could really create something with it. And that's how, from my media communications job, I switched to theatre.
wow, this is so interesting. So, Rayana, tell me, what was those first year challenges that you faced when you changed your career completely and got into something that you always wanted to do?
So for me, the biggest priority was leaving, say, a stable job behind and doing something of my own. Am I really comfortable with the discomfort that it brings? The discomfort of not a fixed salary coming to you. Really the hustle of building, selling and scaling your own business. So these are some of the internal challenges and dilemma that was ongoing. And I always sat down to ask myself, is there a viable model around it? I personally believe that anything that you're undertaking should be able to be financially viable. Otherwise, it's wishy-washy. I don't know if it's a factor of age or stage of life, but I think just going out on a limb is not my style. I wanted to be thorough about what I'm doing. So I put together a business plan around it, and I started testing it through small projects, short duration, one client, one workshop, and I started to see how it would go. I also wanted to see if I could really become a theatre director slash coach, director, whatever you call it. So I started creating my own programs and started running it as a freelancer. And I did that for about 6 months. And in those 6 months, I had a very clear business model emerge. So my company would do these 3 things, and here's how the revenue will flow. And that's when I set up the company and got started.
Wow. Believe me, Raina, you are already ahead of many other founders who still try to figure out the structure, a revenue model, even after 5-6 years of running a business. So, congratulations to you for taking that step towards something that you love doing, which keeps you moving, which keeps you going.
Absolutely.
So, Raina, we are actually celebrating the consistent move of the women around us in this podcast. So, would love to hear some of your stories, the real stories in your life while, coaching kids for the theatre, or I think you're also helping out, adults to be a part of your workshop, to learn or in a way, I will say, to take out their emotions out
Yeah.
with such a beautiful activity of, being a part of a theater.
So my journey in that, I keep jokingly saying that, my target audience is 5 to 55. So anybody who's interested in doing theater and wants to get involved, there is a program for them to explore. But what really keeps me going is the fact that the joy I experience on the floor when the work is in progress. That's what's always motivated me. When you start to become a theater trainer, or a theater based trainer is what I call myself, you start to learn a lot of things about yourself as well. It's not easy to become a trainer or a teacher unless you work on yourself. So it's not just a matter of giving gyan when you yourself are not able to implement it. So I seriously believe that I had to imbibe everything that I was about to train or teach people, see if it worked for me, what were my lessons, and that's how the journey started. So everything has an inward looking focus first. I can't get up and ask you to do something if I don't do it myself. That's where my integrity lies. And in fact, that's where my confidence comes from. So everything that I train, whether adults, in corporate setup or kids in a workshop, is try this for emotional release or try this to get your communication right, is because I've tried them and
Wow.
because I know how it works. I've experienced it for myself, and that gives me the confidence to go up and say, if these are the presentation skills you need to work on, here are the techniques that's going to help you. So it's
Wow.
always been a mix of whatever my learning as well as my hands-on experience been throughout my career, whether it was media communications, working across countries with people from different cultures, and then coming back to my own country, creating something for the people here. It's all driven from those journeys.
Wow, this is so interesting. Uh, in fact, when you spoke about the emotions, I want to hear out the different emotions that you have experienced from 5 to 55 years of your students, I must
Yeah.
say. So please, would love to hear some of the
It's-
stories around that.
That's a very interesting question, because time and again I come back to one observation, that the emotions we experience as kids are pretty much the same that we experience as adults. They may tend to feel more complicated or layered as we grow older, but literally the issues that you have as a child, and if that goes unaddressed in some way or the other, it will manifest or show up in your growing up years. And I may deal with, say, a 7-year-old kid and a 21-year-old, say, exec MBA student differently, or a 50-year-old CEO. My style may vary depending on what age group I'm dealing with, but essentially I'm trying to say the same things. So it's like a movie which has a message, and the message will be delivered in a different way to a kid, to a young adult versus an adult. All the emotions of feeling lesser than someone or feeling not enough. I have some sort of complex. And as we grow older, we get very good at masking it, and
So
we
true.
start winging it. We know how to play the game as adults, so it's good. But what I try to uncover is, let's really address it at the root cause. And something, it comes up again and again, and I find it so interesting that I'll be training, say, a 44-year-old VP in an FMCG sector or a bank or a finance sector. And they would say things like, oh, in grade 3, I was on stage and I messed up and my friends laughed at me. And after that, I swore I'm never going to go up on stage again.
Right.
And that feeling or that incident has resulted in them not feeling comfortable in giving a presentation, not feeling okay if somebody senior is in the room. They're very good talking to their teams, but the moment a senior walks in, the stuttering and the stammering and the nervousness kicks in, or just the discomfort kicks in. So just to understand where the root cause of that, confidence is what lies in that root cause is what I love about my job. I get to discover it, and then we try and solve it, and we come up with a way that they don't need this coaching over and over again. That Once they've gone through the process with me, they're independent enough to work it out. Even say a few years later, the problem might recur. How do you deal with it? So for me to equip them with those techniques is something I derive a lot of joy out of.
Okay, now I'm way more curious. But one thing I should tell you, I can resonate with the feeling that you just described. I can never forget the time on the stage where I forgot my lines. I took my chit out from my uniform and
Yes.
started reading it on the stage.
Yes.
And the whole feeling of uh, what people would have thought or what my friends would have felt is still there. I'm sure they would have
Yes.
forgotten it out
Yeah.
completely. But that's how we are.
Absolutely. And that doesn't change. I have a 10-year-old or a 16-year-old, say a 10th grader or a 12th grader or somebody in college saying, no, grade 2 mein aisa hua tha.
Correct.
And so does a 40-year-old say that when you're on stage, something magical happens. I'm in love with the stage. So I study it, I dissect it in my head. I try and walk through every experience I'm trying to curate for my participants, myself. And it is a magical place. But I understand it can also be very unnerving for a lot of people because you feel completely exposed. If you were a young kid in a group dancing and you missed a step, or if you're
Correct.
singing and you missed a note, you think that the world is looking at you. And in your head,
True.
that moment is very long. In reality, it could be a split of a second. But you
Right.
think, yaar, ye to bahut lamba hua moment that everyone's looking at me. But that's, I think, also the beauty of stage. Every moment gives you a chance to be hyper aware of what's happening around. And once you sort of crack that, and once you understand how do you build a rapport with an audience, you start to enjoy it. Because whatever you want to communicate gets communicated. And it's the biggest joy for human beings because no human being opens their mouth wanting not to be understood.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that joy you hit on stage when you're talking to an audience that I wanted to say this and they understood it. That's
yes.
Success experienced in the moment.
The validation that you get.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
So, Raina, tell me, give me some example of, let's pick up a dialogue. If
Huh.
you have to coach, 5-year or 10-year or
Yeah.
let's say a 40 years old women, how would you start with it? How would you take out the live emotion out?
Yeah, you want to do it with me?
Yeah, let's try.
This is an exercise I do with all age groups.
Okay.
Okay, it's very simple. The statement is, I want to eat pasta.
Okay.
I want to eat pasta. 5 words. You don't have to add a single word to it.
Okay.
Not a word, not a sound, nothing. Just those 5 words. Okay.
Without emotion, like a
So
sentence.
I'll give you an instruction. Okay. Now, Garima, say it like you're ordering someone.
Okay. I want to eat pasta.
Say it like you're requesting it from someone.
I want to eat pasta.
You're begging and pleading your mom to cook pasta. How will you say it?
I want to eat pasta today.
There you go. I don't need to teach you how to emote. As human beings, we know it. I just probably need you to guide you. You just showed me 3 different expressions, 3 different tone, what we popularly call here as voice modulation or voice projection. And I could keep giving you different instructions and you'd keep emoting it differently. I didn't have to tell you, speak like this. I just had to guide you.
Wow.
So,
Raina, I was already a big fan of what you're doing today for all of us. Now, I'm also a big fan of you as a person and, how you helped me sail through this entire activity of, having that confidence to at least go on stage and talk in a different emotion. So thank you so much for doing that.
My pleasure.
So Rayana, since you do a lot of these leadership programs, especially for women, and I have heard people saying that a women leader has to be strong. But in Omizu, we believe that softness is also our power.
Yes, absolutely.
And I would love to know your opinion on this whole subject because you meet women leaders more often.
Yeah.
So what is your thought around it?
But at some point during our evolution, we started to compare tough with what was right, or an approach which was strict and hard with what worked. And largely it's very male defined, if we were to look at it. And we grew up with that, right? We had
True.
this image of macho man everywhere, or someone who was in a position of power had to be rough and tough. um, but that's okay. That's how we evolved. Right now we are at a stage where we identify and we very well recognize that being soft and firm on your point of view is absolutely doable. We never had to be that rough and tough to drive the point home. And it's really not about gender. Uh, Largely, it's been considered that women leaders are softer, for lack of a better word, and that men leaders are tough. I spend a lot of time breaking down these gender stereotypes. I think depending on the situation, you need to take a soft or a hard stance, and a mix of both is what is the best. Having said that, there is a lot of confusion. So if somebody is gentle in their approach towards people or situation, they are seen as not leadershipable, if
True.
if you know what I mean. But it's also a matter of what they are communicating and how. I really don't need to be loud to garner attention. I need to be clear, and I need to be to the point to know what I want. And I think a lot of my training does revolve around getting your point across without you having to yell or shout. Of course, those emotions are valid. If I am angry, I will lose it once in a while. But by and large, what's my style? And it doesn't have to be harsh or rough. And I can still get the work done. You see, it's a
True.
whole process of unlearning that needs to happen for both men and women, because we've
Absolutely.
both of us, both the genders have grown up thinking that, काम करवाना है तो आवाज ऊंची करनी ही पड़ेगी,
Right.
या अगर आप बॉस है तो आपको हक बनता है चिल्लाने का. We've grown up seeing that in our atmosphere, and therefore we bring that to work knowingly or unknowingly, but that need not be the case. So how can you still be firm and very effective without
While
Well-
being soft.
while being soft, and you will still get the work done, and you'll be extremely impactful in your work. It's possible.
I agree.
So it starts with that, step one of believing, right, that that's also possible. And there are numerous examples around us who've made that work as well in our own lives. So we don't really need to look outside for some sort of, learning. There are people around us who've been very gentle, and we've listened to them the most throughout our lives.
So
So
true.
what makes you think people won't listen to you if you aren't, um, civil and gentle?
I
And
agree. I agree. In fact, that's why we celebrate softness, we celebrate beauty, we celebrate
Wonderful.
feminism in Omizu. That's how women should be. They should just continue to do what they love doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the whole idea, and I would love to hear from you about Umizu as well, and why you named it. But the whole idea of, yes, while being myself, I can get the work done. Now, there's just one bit of caution there. Yeah. Too many times we use this statement, I'm just being myself, also as an excuse.
Correct.
So, understanding that my authentic self doesn't mean my unruly self. That's also very important. And in leadership, we draw a very, very clear boundary. What does authentic leadership mean? It means being true to yourself, but also understanding what your impact on other people is. So, your words, your actions, how do they impact people? And being mindful about it. So, I would always pair authentic leadership with mindfulness of the impact you're going to create on people. But having said that, the whole idea of, being yourself, being unapologetic about yourself, and doing what works best for you to help achieve your dreams is what I think both men and women, and certainly, more emphatically women, should be doing. Absolutely. So you tell me, Garma, I've been waiting to ask this. Why Umizu? I know the name has a very interesting implication.
Okay. So Omizu is inspired by the word Mizu, and Mizu is a Japanese word which means water.
Yeah.
And since we were very clear that we want the life of women to change, to move
Yeah.
in a healthier manner, we thought water is one thing that can resonate with our person, and we thought that water can resonate with our personality so well, being very agile,
Hmm.
flowing all the time, fitting into any container that we
Hmm.
can be put in a way, wherever we are, whatever roles we have to play, whichever place we go, we just absorb in, we just own it up, and then start moving in there. So that's why the
That's
word
beautiful.
Omizu.
That's beautiful. And I think that resonates across your design and fit and everything as well, right? You've got something for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you so much for those kind words, and you look so lovely in
Thank you.
Omizu shoes.
They're cool.
So, Rayana, I can see you are bringing so much transformation in the lives of kids, women, and in general, people of all age group. I would love to, listen to some of the stories of this transformation. How did they really got convinced to, first of all, join this, do this with you?
Yeah.
What really happened?
So there are a lot of stories, right? Theater is about stories. So stage पे भी stories होती हैं, and off stage भी there are a lot of stories. A particular one comes to mind. There was a student who was really outgoing, and she's really comfortable being on stage. So no such thing of pushing her to do the program. But one of the things we emphasize during our program is on stage is just one part of theater. So there is a big team off stage which is helping you, look good on stage. So
True.
there is the lights, the sound, the tech team, the prop teams, everything, the set. So you have to understand and appreciate all aspects of theatre making. It's not just acting. So acting is one part of theatre making. We emphasize this during our program enough. And I remember when that kid graduated, she had a natural knack for writing. And I think a year or two later, after finishing the program, she came back to me and said, "Can I write for a younger age group?"
Wow.
And I kid you not, it was a 35-page script written by a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old for 8-year-olds. And not just once, that student of ours wrote 2 or 3 plays for us back to back, every year. I think till she reached college. Now she's in university and very, very busy. And I remember it was her journey that inspired many other parents who now come to me and say that, you know what, no, it's not about acting. Can my kid write? If you have, because there are multiple batches going on, and most of our plays, so 95% of our productions so far are original productions. So we get a writer to write for the group. So it's not established play that we take. And both are very viable ways of making theatre. We love working with original scripts, and that's a choice I made. So we need writers, and there are professional writers who are writing for us. But once in a while, a student raises their hand who they've been an ex-student. And that's quite a moment, because I remember we got very comfortable with her writing style. And there was, I think, the second or the third play. And when she turned around and said, "Ray, I don't feel like writing now. Now I want to," she's a very good painter, so now I want to explore painting. And, the idea of leadership, or whatever you call it, that I was to her as a trainer, my idea was to help her explore all possible facets of
Correct.
art, which she wanted to make a career in. And, gracefully accepting that and saying, you have my support, go for it. So after a while, she stopped writing for us because she's exploring some other form of art. And I see that as a success for us as well.
Wow, this
And
is such an interesting story.
it is,
Yeah.
because people just most of the times we kind of get stuck with what's on screen and the glamour part of it. But there's so much that goes backstage, like what you and I were talking, right?
Yeah,
So much
and
to be
in
done.
fact, I'm thinking here, Rana, she got the full circle of the thing.
She did.
She had
She
a
did.
thought, she put those thoughts on a paper.
Yes.
She could see that going on the
Yeah,
stage,
yeah.
and she could also see the acknowledgement or the reaction or the
Absolutely.
emotions of the audience watching her first thought converted into writing,
Absolutely.
went to the stage and became a full story.
Yes, yes. And it does remain one of my most satisfactory moments of doing my work. There have been many others. There have been a case where the child just didn't want to speak and ended up doing 2 shows back to back. And the parent coming and telling me, ये वाली आवाज तो हम सुनते ही नहीं है इसकी जो स्टेज पे आई है. And other moments, where the child was extremely shy, just as anyone is. There are different personalities, right? And how they could really be courageous enough to put their hand up for it, saying, no, I'll do it. And
Yeah.
the joy they experienced of having done that is, so the goal is never to make actors out of them. The goal
True.
is always to help them become better at communication and to be able to express themselves and to be comfortable talking to a large group of people who they may or may not know.
Wow, this is so
So,
interesting. Raina, you are keeping that human life in the world of AI,
Yes, yes.
and
that's-
you are pushing those real stories to still exist
yeah, it
around
is.
us.
That's actually one of my core beliefs these days. I am a part of business communities and I'm quite up to date with how AI is going to change different things. And the more I read it, the more convinced I am about my work that it's only going to go deeper in its purpose of getting humans to interact with other humans. And while AI will, and in a very nice way, help the arts as well, um, the scope of what I am doing will not get diminished in any way. This is the confidence I have in what I'm trying to create here.
And believe me, everybody is today looking forward to be a part of community where they
Yes.
can bring their emotion out or at least learn from each other. Hats off to you for doing such an incredible work. In fact, I would love to know more stories from the adults as well, how you have transformed their lives.
It's one of the joys of my work to be able to do something that will create a tangible impact in the lives of those participants or clients that I have. There are many stories with adults as well, and those come as WhatsApp messages way after the training is done, saying,
I'm sure.
you told me something, or this was the way to prepare. I got that promotion, that interview went really well, I got that role. Those kind of stories are many, but there are some that really stay in the mind for a very long time. It was early days in my coaching and I was training a big public sector client. And after 2 days of workshop, one of the gentlemen from the audience got up and said, I've been a leader for 22 years. And this is the first time I've stopped to think, what kind of a leader have I been? And for the remaining years of my leadership, I'll try and become a better leader. That was his statement. So those kind of moments really reinforce my purpose as well of doing what I do.
Wow, this is so deep and really so much to learn from you. So I'm sure, Rena, after watching this episode, at least women who are stopping themselves is inside the home for mere communication confidence, they are already pepped up to come and meet you and join a theater and improve their communication skill to at least move on or get on to the journey of something which she loves doing, or maybe something wherein she feels that she's stuck. Okay, so Rana, why don't you tell my audience some 2 3 quick tips for motivating them or pushing them to come out of their daily schedule? I know, while juggling with a lot of other multiple responsibility, but still not missing out on something she wants.
So thank you for asking me this question. It's a question I have personally answered in my life as well for myself. And what I feel women should really understand is that sitting and commentating on society, on world, on family, and so is like that, and therefore my life is miserable, is what really holds us back. I think the less time we spend on blaming a system, a structure, or a person, we spend more time on how can we work around it. The reality is the reality. It will not change. And passing a commentary on it is a colossal waste of time. So my personal goal has been to check how much time am I spending in blaming, and then work backwards and understand that's the time that I free up if I stop blaming, and then I can really strategize what is it that I want to do next. Do I really want to sit and paint for 2 hours because I've been wanting to do that? Do I go get that degree done that I've been wanting to do? Do I start my physical training sessions? Do I start my running? Do I start meditating? Do I start learning that new thing I wanted to learn for, in cooking, for example? So the less time we spend on blame, the better. And the second thing, and it's related to the previous point, is the less time we give into our emotions. It's very good to acknowledge your emotions, but to stay in it for a really long time, you must understand it's counterproductive. So, हाँ, किसी ने कुछ बुरा बोल दिया और किसी ने कुछ बुरा कर दिया, how much do I respond to it? And how much do I react to it? कितनी देर? That's something for me to decide. I can sit and sulk over it for days and weeks and months. And trust me, we know that as adults, we have this capacity to sulk over something for years, right? But I decide when do I stop my emotional bleeding and I get on with the work that I want to achieve. And these are the two things. So tackling blame and tackling my emotional bleeding are the two things that have helped me a lot. And I hope it helps you too.
Wow, this is so interesting, and thank you for such good suggestion for my listeners. In fact, this also reminds me a story, wherein about a friend who used to simply say, whenever I feel sad, I just put my red lipstick on, wear a beautiful shoes, and go for running.
Wonderful.
So that's the example. Everybody has something or the other which may hold them, but it is you who choose that moment and decide to continue to do what you love doing.
Yes.
So this brings us to the end of our conversation. I'll give you a sentence which you need to complete.
Okay.
Women who walks with a grace.
Takes people along like a true leader.
Wow, that's a line with so much of depth and relevance. Thank you so much for spending time with us and helping us learn so many new things about our own emotion and about our own life.
Thank you so much for having me, Garma. It was a pleasure talking to you.